Right. So this is what generally this Microsoft project is all about. Because project management tools are essentially important for us to manage any of the projects, irrespective of technology, irrespective of the domain. For every application to develop, there are different technologies will be used by us. At the same time, domains will also be varied. In connect to that, what is that team has to do? Either the team can be performed by a project manager where they may have multiple teams in any of the projects, or else if they wants to manage multiple products and programs, there is some project management tool which normally we have to use. This is all we are doing since ages. This is not the one we are initiating it recent times. This is being used by us for a very long time. But when we develop any product or a project, usually identifying the right project methodology is important. First of all, to start with. So why is it connecting to this MS project? I'll tell you in 2 minutes. Whenever we are trying to develop any project, usually choosing the right project development methodology is required. Why? Because any application development will have some phases like analysis, planning, design, implementation, testing, deployment, delivery. So these are the different phases we can see in application development. But when it comes to the implementation part of a project, for a customer to be provided, a solution to be provided, customers are from different professional experiences. Some people come from different domains, like some people may be from retailing, some people may be from e-commerce, some people people come from banking, healthcare, insurance, logistics, telecom, travel, right? So different domains people will be from. Depends on the requirements of the customer, how immediate and how urgent is this. Delivering the project is essentially required. Let's say you're developing a project for one of your customer who belongs to a banking customer. Let me put you this way. 100% I am not relating, sir, to an extent possible. Right? So, for example, we are going to develop a core banking solution for one of our customers. So core banking is a kind of application which will be used to manage backend operations of any organization, any banking transactions. The complete backend transactions will be taken over by the core banking application. Now, customer is expecting us to provide or to develop an application of core banking. For that, they will be given some requirements to us. Usually, there will be a role as business analyst, I can say. So where a business analyst will gather all the requirements, whatever the requirements and all, trying to understand the problem. Followed by this, they wants to provide some solution out of that. Now, when we are providing a solution, there are some deadlines. Maybe customer expects you to complete the whole project in 6 months. Maybe they have their own constraints regarding that. So this is one set of. Some people, let's say that if you take some e-commerce kind of projects, customer wants you to deliver project when and wherever it is needed, because customer don't want you to complete the project in another 6 months or 8 months, which is not guaranteed, right? Because what are the features and functionalities we have developed will be outdated after 8 months of time. So it's a continuous process. Means what is that they require in a business to manage? Customer is expecting you to deliver only that part. Right? Earlier, if you see in the beginning days of ours, in mid 90s or early 2000 millennium, all that, if you remember, sir, we used to develop the project complete project used to be developed and we used to deliver. That's how the situation earlier. But nowadays, in past recent times, last decade and a half, the requirements of the customers was changed in such a way, according to their business rules, according to the business goals, what they wants to achieve. They want something to be automated in their business process, because nothing is manual intervention. Even though human intervention is involved, nothing is manual intervention. For every process to be performed in the organization, there is some application which is involved. So technology has become an integral part of it. So if they want to perform something in their organization or in business, they have to develop some new feature or functionality of that sort. So this is a continuous process. Whatever I'm explaining you, this is a continuous process. So customer expectations were different. So they'll give you the requirements. Now some X of requirement was given by the customer. Let's say if you take this project into an account, let me explain you this here, right? For example, point of sale. What is point of sale? Point of sale is a kind of application which will be used for the billing at the retail counter. Whenever we go to the store, we pick some products, whichever is required for us, for our home utensils, all that. So whenever we have picking up all the products, what is that we do? Usually we do the billing. We perform the billing part. So for billing, there is a billing counter, billing person is available there. So where that billing person will take up all the products, wherein he'll scan all the products, so that complete billing, including tax and part. So we pay the bill and we go on. This is what point of sale. Now customer wants to perform an application where he may be required some billing and order processing as first. He may be requiring, right? So point of sale system, major reason why customer expecting you to develop a point of sale system is for billing order processing, right? So sales monitoring and reporting may not be his primary agenda, right? So because of course sales and monitoring reporting is required, but that may be required for a customer in later days. But creating an option where identifying the billing is essentially important for any customer to perform it. So what is required? Billing is needed. If they want to do billing, what is that you require? You have to classify your products. You have to update this in the inventory so that billing can happen. So billing and order, inventory and stock management, these are the two major and primary requirements which customer want you to execute at this point in time, right? So because maybe sales monitoring or channel return management or customer relationships, these can be required by the customer maybe over a period of time, maybe in a couple of months or so. So what is that I am trying to say? Requirement to requirement, customer to customer, whatever the kind of model are we going to use must vary. These models we call it as waterfall, V model, agile, all that. I think you might have aware of it. So when we follow a traditional model of application development, something like waterfall model or something like V model, all that. So there must be some project management tool who should manage all these. So for that reason, widely across industries for a very long time, we are using Microsoft Project is one of the tool. It's a kind of application, or else you can consider it as a product. It's one kind of product which we are using since ages. This is powered by Microsoft Corporation, Microsoft Project, we call it as MS Project in short. MS Project is the one application or a product which can be used to track the progress of the work which was assigned. Means what exactly our project was, what are the different modules and features were involved in it, what are the tasks do we have, and to whom we have assigned the task, and which task assigned by whom, and what are the deadlines for that, how much time will it be taken for us to complete this. So all these things will be taken care of by these people. This is what generally point of sale system is all about. This is what generally point of sale system is. So to manage all this, what is that we require? To manage all this, we require some application to be performed with. So to perform this application, what is that we needed? We require some kind of tool to be used. For that reason, generally, Microsoft Project is being used. This is point number one. But now here is a question, because nowadays we are performing agile environment, right? So because you never know when customer requirement changes, and we never know when customer want you to deliver it as earliest. So what we have to do now, hence the reason why we are performing agile environment, because of this reason. Because in agile environment, the advantage is that for customer wants you to deliver something in next week or so, you can do that. But when we follow the traditional practices, we don't have the provision, because analysis will be done by us, and wherein after that we do planning and design, designing, planning and design. So when you want to make some changes into the existing one, again, you have to go back. The amount of time and effort will be more. So which will be tedious task, and even budget will also, man-hours increases, automatically budget will also be increased. So this is a difficult task. Nowadays we are facing in for a very long time. Of course, further DevOps environment has been introduced recently in order to encounter this problem. And that's a different context altogether. So nowadays we are using agile environment. So even we are following agile process and environment, even to manage projects, you require something to be done with. That is where generally there is a tool which normally are we using called Jira. One of the tools, right? Because this is not only one tool. Of course, we have Azure DevOps, all that stuff, but we have one tool called Azure Jira. So what is that I'm trying to say is MS Project, Microsoft Project is a tool which will be used across industries by us when we follow waterfall model or V model. Whenever we are following traditional models and all, this Microsoft Project is being used, Microsoft Project. At the same time, whenever we are working on the projects which are relating to the agile environment, there is a tool which normally we use called Jira. This is where generally the Jira project is all about, right? Jira is also a software which is powered by Atlassian Corporation, where the same thing can be done here, right? So because there is no difference, Microsoft project at the same time, what we called Jira is also one the same, because you don't see much difference. But Jira has some advantage where we can connect with the different DevOps tools, right? Different apps, right? So if you want to create any kind of test management using Jiffer, or if you want to do some any kind of Groovy scripting, script runners, all these things can be used in Jira. So one should understand here, in reference to the basic part itself is concerned, is when you follow the traditional practices of application development like waterfall model, V model, incremental, iterative, right? So spiral, all that. So there is a tool we are using for a very long time called Microsoft Project, which are we learning now onwards. But when you follow agile practices and all that, so there is a tool which normally people use is called Jira. So Jira is a project management tool where we have to create some roadmaps here. Of course, there are some roles. That's a different thing altogether. There are different roadmaps has to be created. At the same time, some kind of backlogs, right? So active sprints, all these things we have to create because we have a provision where we can create sprints, etc., in the field of Jira. So this is how generally the difference is. Traditional model, we use Microsoft Project. When we are going for agile environment and all, uh, most of the times we use Jira because this is something flexible for any people to use in nowadays. So that hence people are using Jira, all that stuff. This is what an overall understanding over between the differences between these two. Do you understand, sir? Do you have any questions in regard to that?
No, that's fine. What is sprint here in Jira?
Right. Sprint means it's a collection of user stories. Let's say, let me put you this way. For example, I have taken same application called point of sale system. What is point of sale system? It's a billing system. Okay. Now let me put you this way. So if customer called X, who is from a retail organization, came to you and is expecting you to develop a point of sale system. Being a team, okay, I am saying you means being a team, I am saying, okay, not referring an individual. So being a team, what is that first thing you do? You want to know what are the high level features customer want you to complete first. Will you do or not? Yes, sir. Right?
Yeah, we have to do.
Yes. Yeah. First of all, so what customer wants first? For example, customer wants to perform billing. Right? Customer wants to perform billing. What was billing? Right? So billing of products is what is requirement first. Second, customer wants to manage inventory. Customer wants to manage the inventory. Now, once managing inventory, once billing, customer wants to generate different reports, sales reports, day wise, month wise, department wise, product wise, classification wise, all that. Next, customer wants to address something relating to product refund, right? So if there is any product refund and everything. So these are the 4 high level requirements which we are creating on the roadmap in the Jira. Now, what we have to do now, among these, there are some user stories we have to write. For example, billing agent wants to perform billing for the product. This is the high level requirement. If you want to confirm and if you want to make it successful, what is that you require? You need to write down the details of it. Means you need to develop some functionalities to make it successful. So what are the functionalities here? Billing agent wants you to create a login credentials, because a billing agent wants to perform billing. What is that they require first? Login credentials are required. Am I right, sir? Understand, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Login credentials are required. Next, after login credentials, what is that they require? For every product, whatever the product they are billing, that product should have a barcode. Sorry. Right? So some kind of barcode is required. Am I right?
Correct.
Right? So if a person, if a customer want you to build the products, if this is the high level requirement or high level feature, whatever the name you can be, you can call. If you want to make it successful, what is that you require? You have to create some login credentials to the customer, to the end user. At the same time, you have to create some barcode scanning and all everything for the products. Agreed, right? So, like this, first of all, what we have to do, we have to create all these in the roadmap. And whatever the user stories you are writing, all these should be known into the backlog. So, before you like to know about sprint, first of all, you should know about backlog first. What is backlog? Whatever the user stories means, user story nothing but functionalities in it, right? So there is no, it is very simple to understand. Whatever the functionalities we want to develop, all these functionalities will be stored in the backlog. So backlog, nothing but backlog is a repository where you are storing all the user stories in this. Let's say these are the things. Based upon the project, what we have taken 5 user stories. All these 5 user stories were stored where? All these 5 user stories were stored in the backlog. Now, you're asking what is meant by sprint. Let's say these are the 5 user stories we have taken. Right? 5 user stories we have. Now, you are the customer. You are the customer. What is that you want immediately? Right? You want something like, what is that you want? You want billing agent has to be completed this login credentials. This is what is required for you, first of all. Second, there is some barcode for the products we have to mention. This is point number 2. At the same time, you want to create an inventory management system, right? So these are the 3 functionalities required maybe in another week or 10 days time by you guys. Okay. So for that, what we have to do? We have to instruct your development team to perform. How they perform it? So for that, in the form of agile environment, especially in reference to Jira, whenever we are following agile, so we call it as sprint. Sprint nothing but collection of issues, collection of tasks, collection of user stories, what are to be addressed by us
Yeah,
to
yeah.
perform
I
the
got it.
application.
It's like a normal sprint in the running. So we have to basically, we have to basically take all the immediate requirements and
Yes,
put it into
it's a
that sprint.
repository. Yes, this is what we call it a sprint backlog. Usually, this is what is that we use called sprint backlog is what we call it as. In this sprint
Yeah,
backlog,
the
what you're
immediate
doing?
requirement which needs attention.
Absolutely. When is the requirement which needs attention, which has to be completed in coming days or days. Usually, it will be on days. So this is where general sprint is. So the difference between traditional to agile is this. In traditional model, there is no kind of sprint kind of model. Whereas when you go for agile model, there are sprints, right? So sprints collecting to every requirement. For example, these 3 we have to complete. How many days we require? Assume that based on the business value and technical complexity which team has identified. So, for example, this can be completed in week of time, so that you have to fix it, right? So 1 week time, or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or else if you want to customize. Sometimes I don't require 1 week. I want this in next coming 10 days. I want this in coming 10 days. So what I can do, I can simply customize it. So based on the customization, what I can do, I can simply create this sprint so that people can work this accordingly. Did you understand this?
So
Clear,
now
sir?
I think I got a basic difference between traditional
Ah,
project planning and
yes.
I
It
mean
is very simple, okay?
agile requirements. So
Yeah,
agile
see.
means we need to move very quickly to
Yes,
basically address the customer
yes,
requirements.
yes,
Project plan goes in a traditional way. It could be a
yes,
short term or long term, but it has
yes,
a process. And
yes,
but In Agile, I think whatever, the requirements are there, that needs, immediate delivery.
Yes, yes. That needs immediate delivery. Usually, in the form of agile environment, deliveries will happen frequently. Sometimes we do weekly twice also. Sometimes weekly
Yeah.
twice deliveries we have, weekly once, monthly twice, right? So delivery according to the requirement of the customer, according to the need of the business, what customer wants, which can be delivered. That is possible in agile by using Jira tool. But
So,
whereas we don't have the provision in traditional.
on a high
That's
level,
right.
I think whenever you talk about Agile, that's a quick method, to basically address the customer requirements.
Simple, simple and simple. See, what is required for a customer, you are developing and you are delivering it to the customer. Simple. This is what you follow in Agile, in Jira. But whereas when it comes to the traditional model, it is different. In Microsoft project, what is that we do? Whatever the tasks we have taken, this task remain constant and same. So there will be no short-term deadlines, which normally in traditional model we do. But there are differences and there are changes which end of the day, see, Microsoft is also a product, right? Microsoft is also a product powered by someone. It will be powered by Microsoft Corporation. So they are making changes according to the customer needs, according to the market demand. They are also transforming slowly. They are adding some new features and functionalities to the existing products. A lot of new changes were happening because see, if you want to sustain ourselves in the market for a long time, we have to update ourselves, right? So there is no exemption for a product even. So even product development is also required. For example, if I'm developing a product, right? So for the benefit of customers, it's not only the product I'm developing now. So if I want to make it sustainable for a long time, and if I want to be raised for a long time, forever, I have to keep on update my product according to the requirements of the business needs, which is needed in the market. So based on that, I have to make changes according to my product. Then only my customers will retain my product to use their business, to use for their business operations. Otherwise, why do they use? So there are changes nowadays happening even. They're making some constant changes, right? So you are introducing new features. All these things they were doing slowly. But on top of it, what is that I'm trying to say? When we follow traditional practices of application development, so Microsoft Project is the one we use. When we follow agile practices and all, we use Jira, Azure DevOps. Right? So different tools can be used there because there are some strict timelines which normally matters in the field of agile. But when we follow agile practices and all, there are no timelines, something like in week or 10 days we have to deliver. Nothing of that sort. Right? So which can be delivered according to the requirements. What is that we have? And that is the reason
What
why
do you
and
mean by
one
Agile DevOps here?
see, agile is an environment you want to complete a project within the limited time. First point. DevOps is an environment. So there is a difference. Again, I'm repeating. Agile is a methodology or a process of working on something. DevOps is an environment, right? So I'll tell you the difference. Let's say, for example, we are performing our day-to-day activities personally and professionally, right? So personally, even we have commitments in regular intervals. Professionally, we have commitments in regular intervals. So what is agile? I'll tell you in a simple note. So we are performing our personal task, right? We are dropping our kids to the school, right? So getting them from the school, right? So we are taking care of all the household activities. So for that, there is a plan. Every day morning, whenever we wake up, whenever we complete our reclusions, there are some personal activities and personal requirements which has to be addressed by us at home. After that, we go to office. This is the schedule we do. But there will be some situations where we come across where we have to make some changes immediately, depends on the priority. This is what we are doing, right? Right or not, sir? Right. So what is that we do? For example, my wife, every day there is a discipline that my wife will take kids to the school, not me, because my day starts very early, so that my wife can do that. This is what the discipline which normally I follow. One day, my wife got an immediate thing to be addressed at her office, where she wants to leave her office very early. She couldn't drop the kids to the school. What is that they do? What is that she do now? She simply tell me that please take care of kids and drop them in school, wherein I have to address some assignment as earliest as I can. What I have to do now? I have to make my adjustments, my changes according to my requirement, according to the priority. I have to I have to plan my calendar accordingly, wherein I have to put a message to my boss where I may be late for another half an hour or so, right, or 1 hour or so, wherein I have some personal work. So I have to make some arrangements so that meanwhile, so I can adjust my personal belongings and I can plan my schedule accordingly for that particular day. This is what generally we call it as agile, in simple note. Whatever the priorities are we making on a day-to-day schedule, even though there is a schedule which normally we are following, we are working on it, but we never know when these priorities come into picture. So whenever the priorities becomes, we have to plan our calendar such a way it should not disturb anything. This is what we call it as agile. So this is the same thing we follow even in application development also. Let's say, for example, there is a point of sale system, as I said. What I said in point of sale system, there is an application we are developing where customer wants you to deliver some amount of task which has to be completed in another 1 week or 10 days of time. Right. So if you follow analysis, if you follow traditional practices, what you do, we do analysis first. After that, we are going for planning and design. After that, implementation. After that, coding, all that. In any changes you want to make in between, which is difficult. Am I right, sir? Right. Which is difficult. So that's the reason why, especially in the field of agile is an environment. By the way, you must understand one thing: agile is not something confined only for application development, no, not only for software development. Even HR people, operations, finance people, everybody can use it, marketing people, all that. So whatever the priorities they want you to address very fast. So to create that environment, this is where generally agile methodology is what we follow. In this agile methodology, we'll make people to take decisions very quick. Individual decisions has to be taken. If you take football, football is an example for that. In football, there are some quick decisions should be taken by the team within fraction of seconds, and they have to implement to make their goal successful. Right. So even though they have a plan earlier before they are coming into the ground, but when they come into the ground, whatever the realities are different. Will you agree or not? The reality is very different. The kind of opposition or the kind of attack what we see on the ground will be different because strategies will be changed by the opponents very fast. So what if people wants to do in order to make their game successful and happier, what they have to do? They have to take some instant decisions, and the decisions has to be communicated among the team members very fast, and this has to be implemented within next coming day. Am I right or not? Right. So there is no planning as such you are making earlier. Even though you have made a plan, that plan won't be there forever. Depends on the situation to situation. You have to change your plan of action, intimate to your respective words and your team members, and you have to act accordingly to make your game happier and successful. Am I right?
Yeah, can you just, give an example where you are referring to the terminology called DevOps? Okay,
Yeah.
you said
Now,
DevOps is an
agile
environment.
is this. This is what agile is. Okay. Now, when you talk about DevOps, what is DevOps? Right. This is where it is. DevOps means, for example, you are a developer. Let me put you this way. Right. So you have written some code. Some XYZ code was written. So once it is written, what is that you do? You give this to the development DevOps. You give this to the deployment team. Okay. Deployment. What deployment team do? Deployment team will deploy your application or your some code in the system client environment. So they see whether you have done right or not according to the requirement of the customer, it was there or not, and finally they will deliver it to the customer. This is what usually the practice. So there are two environments. One is development environment, second is operations environment. Development environment means developer is writing code, operations nothing but deployment. right? Whatever the code you have written will be deployed by the deployment team, and finally that will be given to the customer. This is the process which normally we follow for a very long time. Now, what is happening? For example, you have written a code for particular functionality wherein you have given to the customer, wherein you have given to the deployment team. Now you got a request from the customer where you want to make some changes into the existing ones. You want to make some changes to the existing ones. What you have to do now, again, you have to go to the analysis phase where you have to make some changes to the existing ones. Again, you have to come back to the planning and design, which incurs a lot of effort in terms of manpower is more. First of all, manpower effort is more. When manpower effort is increased, automatically cost will also be more. Am I right or not? At the same time, there is a constant tussle between development and as well as operations team when there is some changes happens in middle of the project. Will you agree? Right? So there is a communication gap between development team and operations team always happens when there is any volatility in requirements taken place. Yes, sir. Agree or not? Right? So in order to address this problem, what is that we are doing?
Sir, agree.
What is that we are doing? We are creating an environment which is called DevOps. DevOps is an environment, sir. Okay, please do remember. DevOps we should not call it as a DevOps as a technology. DevOps is an environment. What environment? We are creating an environment where we are creating a platform where development and operations teams working on the same platform. Because you are a developer, you are an operations team. Yourself is that. Right? For example, you are 4 members, right? Let's say that you are 4 people who some people are doing expert in coding. Some people may be in testing in user interface design and some other task, right? Maybe, right? So what are we doing now? In this DevOps environment, both development and operations teams are working on the same platform. So you don't have any operations team or a deployment team as separate. So there is no separate team. So you are the one who is developing it. You are the one who is deploying it. So where you are going wrong, where you want to make some corrections and all everything, your team will know it. Rather than giving this task to someone where if they feel any kind of communication gap, something of that sort, there is a difficulty where they couldn't understand anything well in advance. So in order to address the problem, what you're doing, you're creating a DevOps environment where both developer and as well as operations team is yours only, right? So your team, you're turning into a DevOps environment where they must be capable enough to write the code. They must be capable enough to do the testing part. Followed by this, even deployment will also be done by the same team. So to do that, there are some tools they have to use. This is where generally this Jenkins, GitHub, Kubernetes, Ansible, right? So all these things, Docker, right? So all these things came into picture because of this reason. Understood? Right? So where there is a continuous implementation, continuous integration, continuous deployment and delivery of the work, which can be done. So when it is possible, when we are creating an environment called DevOps. So DevOps is not a technology anymore. Please do remember, DevOps is not a technology. You are a developer. Your responsibility is to write the code and give it to the deployment team. So that once the testing is done, deployment team will take care. That's how the situation earlier was. But nowadays, the situation has changed in such a way where you don't do only development. Even operations activities will also be handled by you equally, so that where are these changes to be made, when this is to be made, so that coordination will be there among the group of members. This is where generally environment of DevOps, which has created recently in application development by us, in order to kind of address the problem, because volatility of requirements usually happening nowadays. Because if you see, since ages, if you see in the mid-90s or early 2000, as I said earlier, there won't be much requirement changes because customer has given some requirements. That requirements remain still for long time. But nowadays you don't know what customer wants tomorrow. You don't know, right? So if customer wants tomorrow, today he will tell you, right? Today morning in on call, today morning you get to know that what is that the required customer by tomorrow. You know, because you'll not have time also. So according to the industry, according to the market needs, the application development process should require some reformations and changes to be happened. For this reason, Agile and as well as DevOps has been introduced nowadays. Did you understand this? Clear? Did you understand this, sir?
Yeah.
So DevOps is an environment where development and operations team working on the same platform. There is no operations team or a deployment team as separate. If there, why? Because whatever the changes are happening, whatever the changes were coming, so that has to be addressed by someone with immediate effect. That must be the team, which is DevOps team. So there won't be any kind of communication gap. There won't be any kind of delays to be addressing the same problem. This is what DevOps environment, which has been created nowadays in the industry of IT by us. Whereas when we talk about Agile is a methodology or a process to address a problem where you want to complete it very fast. So for that, what is required? It is always better to, in spite of writing some requirements, documents and all, it is all better to write some user stories. For example, if you can take here, what customer wants to create some barcoding for a products to be products for their billing. So what is that we have to do now? A product owner or a business analyst will write a user story simply, right? So in spite of preparing documentations like BRDs, right? So functional requirements, what we do, simply we can write a user story. Of course, there is a template to write a user story, right? So as a user, I want you to create barcode on the product so that I can scan the products at the time of billing, right? This is what the user story was written and given to the development team. So based upon this, development team will write how to create the barcoding for the products, right? What steps to be followed. Everything will be planned by the development team and they do accordingly. So the amount of time you are spending to write requirements, being a business analyst, is coming down. If you follow traditional practices, you have to write BRDs, SRS, functional, non-functional requirements, all that. But whereas when you're coming to Agile environment, you don't require to write anything of that sort. You can write user stories, and these user stories can be given to the development team so that they can work on this accordingly. This is what and how generally the differences you see between traditional to Agile. In this agile environment, even DevOps is also integrated, because the DevOps team is, they are finding in such a way where they have to understand the integration process and deployment and delivery process of application development. Because earlier, if you are a developer, it is confined only to write coding only. But nowadays, the situation has changed in such a way where you have to do some changes when and wherever it is. Did you understand this, sir? Clear? Understood or not?
Yeah.
Right. So this is all for today. Of course, this is what the brief idea I have taken. Tomorrow we have session. Actually, tomorrow second day. So better, I don't want to miss the session tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm taking session. But tomorrow, again from Monday onwards, let us make it 9 o'clock. Possible to you? 9 o'clock in the morning. In spite of
9 o'clock is possible. Tomorrow, I think, can we shift the class to somewhere evening, or do you have that? Are you available?
So I'll take somewhere around 15-20 minutes, sir, because tomorrow is the second day. I don't want to miss sentimentally.